So today I do want to call us out a little bit because I have heard a couple of clients recently say things like they feel like they're shrinking back, or I use the word hiding. In midlife can be a place where things can feel a little unsteady, right? And so we're not putting our best foot forward. And some of us aren't actually hiding in a very direct, traditional way, but we let everybody else get the best of us, right? We will only take what's left over. And after all years of doing that over and over for the people in our lives, we start to feel dull. We start to feel invisible, like people are not seeing us, right? And we're not talking about just our skin, because I know that that's one of our main topics we talk about here, but we're talking about our whole life. And so that's why I wanted to bring this up today and talk about that attic effect that happens in our lives, because so many women I know have packed up part of themselves, right? And shoved it up there in a place where it could be stored for later. Our dreams, our gifts, our confidence, our calling. And it feels responsible at the time when we do it. So there's no shame here today, actually. People needed us in our lives at that time, and it feels good to be needed. And so what I want to ask you today, though, what if you need you in this season now? Right? Because I want to boldly call that out and say that later is now, my friend. Like, it is time to shine. And so if we haven't met, I'm Michelle, and today we're going to be talking about dusting ourselves off, right? And shining in this next season. And I'm going to be giving you one small change that you can walk away with today that will start bringing yourself back. And you'll be unpacking that attic and bringing it down, dusting it off, and starting to shine and reflect again who God has designed you to be. So we're trying to get that someday that we have set aside and pull it into the now and into motion. But if you've been enjoying this podcast, would you do me a favor and leave a review either on Google or Apple Podcasts? So for Android and Apple users, I am asking this request because we live in a world full of AI right now. And that is one of the ways that lets the rest of the Christian midlife women out there know that I'm a real life person offering real value. And so if you would do that, that would be great. I'll leave the links to Google and Apple in the notes. All right, so let's go ahead and talk about what it looks like in this season to dust off and shine. Okay, because again, we're not talking about, I don't want to get dramatic, right? And say, stop hiding, stop shrinking, right? That does sound very dramatic. But most midlife women, they're not really hiding in a corner. Although that has been what I was doing. They're hiding in plain sight. Like I mentioned, you're showing up every day, you're doing hard things, you're being dependable. You're one of the best people that friends can call on when they need you. And so you are the person that people depend on, right? The one that they remember, the one that holds it all together when life feels chaotic. And honestly, you've gotten really good at it. So good at it, you don't realize that you've slowly died and put your dreams and your passions and aspirations up into the attic, right? Somewhere along the way, you stopped being a person and you operated out of function. And so this is the part that makes me want to like grab you by the shoulders, lovingly, of course, and say, when you ran out of time and pushed yourself aside, and when you ran out of money, you sacrificed so that other people could have. And then when you ran out of energy, you told yourself, like, I'll take care of me later. And this is where that slow leak is happening, where you feel dull, you feel desensitized, you don't feel like anybody sees you anymore, right? And we're talking about like dull in your joy, in your excitement, in your passion, in your confidence, in your living, right? And so I had to ask myself recently, like, when was the last time you really felt lit up and passionate about something? And that's why I love this attic picture that it gives us, because the attic isn't where you throw away trash, right? Things that are not important. It's where you actually take something that's important and has value, and you don't want to lose it, but you don't necessarily have room for it right now. And so you're just putting it up there for another day, right? And so the good news here is, because I've heard a lot of midlife women say, I've lost myself. No, you haven't. You've just stored her away for a later day, right? For a better time. And so, the version of you that took care of your body and stewarded your beauty, who had hobbies, who laughed more, right? This is the part that we feel that pain and ache inside that we don't want to talk about. And the truth of it is, you've just stored that person and all those things in the attic, right? You've let them collect dust. They weren't the practical thing you needed out of your life at the time. And so now I am pulling and calling forward that brave and alive person. And there are things that we have said to ourselves. We've said, I'll get back to her when this happens, right? So like when you fill in those blanks, it's when the kids get older, maybe the schedule calms down because it's soccer season or whatever. When you have more money, I do hear that one quite a bit. Or when I lose weight, or or just when you feel energetic enough because you might feel tired. And so if you're listening right now and you're thinking, yes, like I've said all of these things, I want you to please hear me, because midlife is often the season where God is saying, this is your time to shine. And I am pointing my finger at you. This is your time to shine, right? We're not waiting anymore. He does not want you to wait anymore. There is no excuse and no resources he can't provide for you. He has fully equipped you. If he's calling you right now, he has fully equipped you, or plans to fully roll out that red carpet and equip you for what you need. Okay. You've been faithful to everyone except for yourself. And I'm not saying you shouldn't love the people in your life. I'm actually saying that you should. But I'm also saying you shouldn't have to disappear and put yourself in the attic in order to love people well, right? There is a and a both type of situation here. And so here's what's really wild, right? A lot of women think that the problem is that they need to go and reinvent themselves, and they need this whole new big life, or I need a whole transformation and midlife makeover, right? And those are fun things. I like them, right? But most of the time, the problem is that your life is buried under layers of dust. You don't actually need to grab new items, new furniture, new things. You actually just need to dust off what you have. And you've developed these things and these passions and dreams for a reason over time. And so these layers of doing and duty and responsibility and pressure, right? And those are the things that are making the dust happen on your life. And so the good news is dust doesn't mean that it's dead or it needs to be thrown away. Right? It just means that it's been sitting for a while, and it's time to pull it out and polish it off, right? And so today that's what we're going to be doing, which feels completely doable, doesn't it? So we're going to be opening the door to that attic, right? And we're going to be looking at what we've stored in the attic and deciding what gets to still belong in this next season. Because some of those things up there, they're beautiful, but you don't even want them anymore. Right? They were great for your 20s and your 30s or raising your kids. But right now, for those items, you can just bless them and release them, pass them on to somebody else if you want, and just be done with it without shame, right? The fact that it just sat there and you didn't do anything with it. No, you don't have to feel shame over that. In fact, you're saving yourself years of trying to force it into your life. But those other things, right? The moment you touch them, you might feel a spark of joy, something that excites you inside. And you're like, oh my goodness, there you are. Like when you land on that thing. And that's what we're going to go after today. Okay. And so I want to do a quick check-in. Tell me in the comments, would you hear attic season, right? The time that you have stored those things in the attic. What's the first thing that you know that you have stored away? Like one word is just fine. Your health, your fashion, your joy, right? Your calling, your passions, time with friends, right? Because next we're actually going to be talking about the voice that tries to stop you when you have decided I'm going to start dusting that thing off, right? And you're going to be able to tell the difference between that voice, because sometimes it sounds so responsible, it feels like wisdom. And so you're actually going to be able to listen to that voice, know if it's an inner critic and know if it's wisdom. Okay. Because I will say the second you even think about going back to yourself, almost always when I work with clients, almost always that voice will show up as the inner critic when we try to dust something off. And it usually doesn't sound like a villain, right? Like it usually sounds like wisdom. It sounds practical, mature, responsible, and it even can sound spiritual. I will say that. But the fruit of it's always going to be the same. And you'll be able to know, because if you feel like shrinking back up and remaining small or keeping your mouth shut and being quiet, postponing yourself again, right? Because you're not ready or whatever it is. That's the inner critic. Okay. And so I want to be really clear. I'm not talking about the Holy Spirit convicting you when he's saying, not yet, my daughter, right? This is different. This conviction from the Holy Spirit, this conviction it's loving, right? It leads you towards life and towards God in a way that you feel the peace of knowing it's time to wait. But when it's inner critic, and it's leading you back to the hiding to make it feel safe, because often when the Lord's calling you out, it doesn't necessarily feel safe, except for you know that he's walking with you, right? You have to train and do hard things. And so we can feel that in our bodies. But the inner critic will say things like this, so that we can help identify them. Who do you think you are to be thinking that you could do this at your age or, in this season? Don't get your hopes up. I know I've journaled about those words before, right? Or you may hear the inner critic say, it's probably too late. You've moved on too far. Other people need you more. That's not for someone like you. There's people who are better at this than you, right? Or you may start this thing, but you're not going to finish. You don't have a track record for that. Or I don't have the body for that anymore, or the energy for that anymore, right? Or this sounds selfish. You wanting to have this for yourself, right? And then this one is one that when my inner critic says this, it gets me stirred up, because it will say, like, you should be grateful, for what you already have. Okay. And so that one is very sneaky, and it sounds holy, but gratitude doesn't lead you to think shame for yourself, right? True gratitude. It's not meant to cancel desire, right? It actually is the place where your desire is rooted in the Lord. Okay. And so you can feel completely grateful and deeply grateful and still want to shine, right? Still want more. And you can love your family and still have a calling, still pull out your purpose and get it going, right? And so you can serve people and still be a person with that isn't having to operate only out of function, because we all do have functions. I'm a mom, I'm a grandmom, right? There's functions, but I also get to be Michelle. And so do you. You get to be you. So that inner critic, it doesn't want you to believe that. It wants you to remain small. It wants you to keep things dusty, right? So that it's not reflecting the light of the Lord. When we reflect light, people can't help but go, ooh, that's bright. Look at that. It stands out. It's like it's highlighted with the brightest yellow highlighting marker there is. And the devil doesn't want you to shine like that. Okay. So hopefully that's enough to call you out and kind of kick you into gear. We want you to take that next first step. And it's okay too if you don't take that step. The Lord is still fine with that. But this is something that this inner critic, it will guard the door of the attic and try to keep you from opening that door. And I would rather, and so would the Lord, have you walk in the fullness of his glory in your life. And so here again is a quick difference to tell between the inner critic and wisdom coming from the Lord, right? Wisdom will say, start small, right? Take baby steps, exercise those muscles and develop the strength to keep moving on, right? You don't have to take the whole thing in one step. The inner critic will say, don't start, right? Because all these reasons for fear of something that you don't yet know or see or understand. Okay. Wisdom will say, you might want to get support, someone who's walked this path before, a guide of sorts, right? The inner critic will say, hide until you're perfect, right? Because you can't let anybody know that you don't know how to do this by yourself, right? I would not be doing this right here in front of you because I do not know technology. I had to get people to teach me. I took a lot of classes, right? And so that's the thing. The Lord said, this is what I want you to do. And I had to go find someone who knew, because I didn't know what to do with that. And so wisdom says, go get support, right? The inner critic says, hide until you're perfect. So just know you don't have to be perfect. If he's calling you, he is preparing to equip you with what you need. Wisdom will say, do what you can with what you have. Don't try to do beyond your means, right? The inner critic will say, if you can't do it all, do nothing, right? All or nothing. And so wisdom will leave you with more of a peace, knowing that it really is the Lord who's doing the work. You get to just be his little girl walking along with him, and he just lets you pretend like you're doing something, right? Because he does it all. And so that inner critic, it leaves you scared, feeling inadequate, feeling like you're not worthy or you're not enough or you're not important. And so I want to give you a tool today that you can use immediately. So when that inner critic voice rises up, all you have to do is ask this question: is what I'm hearing pulling me toward God and my calling or purpose, right? Or is it pushing me back into the attic? Is it adding to the another layer of dust? Because God's voice will challenge you, it'll encourage you, but it will never shame you. But let's take it to something that's super practical, because some of you already know what's sitting in your attic. You know, you're always walking through the things that you're neglecting in your life. And so you don't need to know what you're avoiding. But some of you, you know, it's been stored up there so long, you don't even remember what's up there, right? And so if you've tried opening that attic door before and you've had this inner critic speaking to you and saying, no, not you, not yet, right? But today, here's what I want you to do, because the Lord gave us vision that our minds can walk through. It's miraculous how he designed our bodies. But I want you right now to picture that attic door. And I want you to picture that voice that's standing there with a clipboard, acting like it's in charge. Okay. And then here's what I want you to say back to it, right? And say it out loud if you want to, because if you're in your car by yourself or washing dishes, nobody's paying attention. You can say this: you don't get to decide what God gets to resurrect in my life. And you might even have to say that to yourself, right? Because I know for many years I was too quick to surrender to that voice, right? And so some of you needed to hear this, that you're not alone. Other people are feeling this and they need to be told, you don't get to take away what the Lord wants to resurrect, right? And so this season, again, is not something about starting something brand new. It might feel that way because it's been so long since you pulled those things out of the attic, but it's about dusting off those things that are already there. They just need to be unburied. Okay. It's just like the diamond in the rough concept. There's a diamond. It's just sitting in the dirt. You've got to go and brush off that dirt, right? And you need to remind yourself that you're a diamond, right? As a daughter of the King, you're a diamond. So let's go ahead and go up those attic stairs. So if you visioned opening the door, right? And now we're going to go up there. All right. And I want you to picture this in real life as much as you can, because when we go to picture with our minds, we're picturing this like fully organized space. No, I want you to picture a dusty, cobweb filled, dirty attic, the way your attic really is. Okay. And so this is the kind of place where you may even ask yourself, like, why do I still own this? Like, what was it that made me think I should not throw this away and just store it up here, right? Because there's going to be things that you forgot. Even for the people who are always keeping that list, there's going to be things that you forgot. And midlife is that place where we start assessing, because we've taken a chunk where, again, it's almost like, I don't know if you've ever been on the interstate and you're driving, and then all of a sudden you come to and you're like, I don't remember driving the last 2 miles, right? That is your 30s and 40s when you're raising your kids. You know, there are snippets of things that you can remember about other people, but when it comes to dialing in and remembering your own life and the things that you valued and your dreams and passions, most people do not remember. And so we're going to go through an attic audit together. Okay. And so feel free to pull out a piece of notebook paper if you want, but also know that inside the Facebook group, under the files section, there is a worksheet. Every week I provide a worksheet for the lessons that I teach, so that you can just listen fully, let the Lord speak, and then you can go dig in deeper and get that homework done, because I want this to change your life, right? So step one, we're going to name those boxes, right? We're going to look at the things you've stored away. So it could be your health, your fashion, your marriage, your friendships, your creativity, your confidence, your calling, your purpose, your body, your joy, right? Your walk with the Lord even. And I would dare to even add to it your voice. And so what I want you to do is I want you to just pick 3 things that you have stored away. And I want you to add it to your list, just 3 things, because you can always go back and evaluate another thing later, but I don't want to overwhelm you. But this is where you may even find yourself needing a box of tissues, right? Because you'll feel all kinds of emotions around some of the things that you've stored away. And you may not even realize how long you've been carrying this around in your attic and leaving it behind. It will feel very personal. So then what I want you to do is when you've put those 3 boxes down, I want you to start sorting through them. And you're going to do it just like you're going through your items and getting ready to Goodwill them or whatever. So you're going to have a keep list, a give list, and a toss list, right? And so what keep looks like is this still matters, right? It still feels like me. It's still mine. I still want it. Give will kind of sound more like, this was good, but I don't think it's mine anymore. It's not something I'm going to carry on in the next season, but you're just releasing it, right? You're passing it on, letting the Lord handle that. Toss. This one, it's expired. It sat up in the attic so long that it deteriorated and it's no good anymore, right? And so again, you don't want to feel any guilt or pressure over that. It's just time to let it go, throw it away, right? It's no good anymore. And so this is really important because some of you have put dreams and you may feel very emotionally connected to them but yet there's a part of you that will struggle with putting it in the give pile or the toss pile. And I want you to know that it's okay to spend a lot of time around this with the Lord and release them. Because can you imagine what he has for you if you love that dream and it's not part of your next season, what the dream is for the next season, right? He has so many great things, right? And so you will need, though, to give permission over to the Lord to take it. He's not going to take anything you don't want to release or let go, right? And so you don't want to delay this plan for your calling and your purpose anymore, right? But you do need to stop carrying things that don't need to be carried. And so some of the things that will be in your toss pile will be old beliefs. And of course, in the life coaching world, we're often talking about mindsets, because if you believe something, you live it. And so where your focus is, that's where you follow. So when you think things like, I missed my chance, or it's too late, and you start living that, you're going to miss out on the dusting off and polishing and shining in this next season. So we want to toss those into the trash can. That's where they belong, right? And so things like, if I shine, it's going to look like I'm selfish. Or if I try, I might fail. Yeah, you might. It's okay. Failing doesn't mean that you get to stop. The Lord will pick you back up and he'll dust you off and you'll keep trying, right? That's what little kids do when they're learning to walk. And so you have to remember that these belief systems, the false self, right? They're not personality traits. They're not character traits. They're not something that has to stay with you. They get to be a dusty box that you get to throw away. So I want you to take those boxes, and as you're going through them, I want you to touch them in your mind, right? And I want you to see if it sparks anything inside of you, right? Just choose one box at a time, though. Make sure you don't overwhelm yourself. But in that, when you touch it and you smell it and you breathe it and you let all your senses into play here, do you feel a little bit of a jump start? Like when you're starting a car and the battery's dead and you're jump starting it, it starts to kind of show you, okay, it's trying. So sometimes you have to just kind of sit with it until it brings it fully back to life, right? So I want you just to see, do you feel even just a hint of a tiny amount of excitement, a spark, something that makes you go, ooh, that's what I want to go after. And then when you've chosen a box that you want to keep, this is where you get the polishing process started. Okay. You got to get the dust off. You got to tune it up. You got to make sure it's in proper order. And so again, we're not trying to reinvent your whole life and renovate it all. We're just looking at this one little box. Okay. This one little change. And so this is where you get to go, okay, Papa, what is the one small action that you want me to take when it comes to this keep box that I've let sit in the attic and collect dust, right? What is it that I can do? And then what I want you to do is consider acting upon it as soon as possible when he gives you a clear answer of what that should look like. So let me give you a couple of instances what this could look like. If you have stored your health up there, polishing might look like walking for 10 minutes a day after lunch, 3 days a week. It may just look as small as I'm going to put tennis shoes on each day so that if there's ever a moment that I could, get a walk in, I'm ready. It doesn't mean you're actually acting on the walk yet, but just something that you can convince yourself and get yourself into motion as soon as possible. So it could mean I'm going to drink a bottle of water before I drink my coffee every day. I'm a tea drinker, but I know that most of you out there are coffee drinkers. And then maybe you need to book that health appointment, that doctor appointment that you've been holding off because you've been too afraid or whatever it is. Or I'm going to go 3 minutes to bed earlier tonight, and then each week keep adding 3 minutes, right? If it's your beauty that you need to polish off, it might look like wearing that outfit that you've been saving and letting it sit in the back of the closet, right? Or maybe putting on, if lipstick is a jump too far, I like to wear these tinted chapsticks, right? And so just anything that moves you in that direction, small baby step at a time until you feel like, okay, now I'm taking and updating my entire skincare routine. Now let's talk about calling and voice, because one of you mentioned purpose. And so in this case, to start speaking up in areas that are safe and small to start out with, it might be, I've got to send that text and email I've been holding off, right? I'm going to go ahead and make that post inside social media that I've been holding off. Or I'm going to go ahead and jump on that Zoom call and turn the camera on. How many of you can feel that? Or if she's called you to be a writer, I'm going to just sit down and write 2 or 3 sentences today. And so when you're taking these little baby steps, right, you're increasing your capacity for more of it. You're increasing that joy and that creativity and that partnership with the Lord, that where his light shines upon you, you can reflect. Right. And so you don't have to be, you can start out just taking the dust off. Sometimes you're still a little dull. So then you have to put a little oil in, right, to polish it, but you're just moving in that direction. And that's what this baby step does. And so before we close, the most beautiful part of the process is just learning what is yours and not comparing to what other people are walking in, but you have something in the attic that's yours. The Lord gifted it to you. You received it from him, and you just weren't using it in the time and the season. And so now it gets to be yours. You get to touch it again. You get to bring that joy and that spark to the world in an area where they need you, right? And so before we hop off, I want to give a real quick recap of today's message, because you didn't lose yourself. You just stored something away and it collected dust. Simple. That voice that shames you is not in charge. It does not have to be in charge anymore if it has been in charge, right? And that shine comes back with one teeny polish at a time. And so the Lord, he is delighting in you. You don't have to feel any shame. He's not sending any shame. He's ready to help you walk this pathway, right? And so take something that within the next 24 hours that you can do to polish yourself in the dreams that you've set into the attic, and have a conversation with Papa God about what he wants you to do with that, what his vision is for this next season for you, right? And so if you want accountability, come join the Facebook group, put it in the comments there. We want to cheer you on, right? So mention the keep box that you have decided you're going to keep and you're going to start cultivating it. I know we've got a lot of writers in our group. And so this is where sometimes other people get to polish you. That's where the Bible talks about iron sharpening iron, right? It keeps us sharp and reflective. And I know that as women, we can feel really emotional about this. So definitely go get that support. And if you're thinking like, I've wasted so much time, you're not late. So you don't have to worry about time. Time is a resource that the Lord is not limited to. He's not limited to finances. He's not limited to energy. He's not limited to even what you're equipped with and your qualifications are, right? God is so good that he is not limited by that stuff. So he's kind, right? And if he is tapping on your shoulder and he's saying, hey, come lay this at my feet and see what I can do with that. All right. So I do want to pray with you today, because this is life altering, right? So Jesus, thank you for the women who are on the other side of the screen. You see what she has carried. You see what she's postponed. You see the parts of her that have been buried under responsibility and survival and love for the people in her life. And so I pray that you give her the clarity for what to release the courage for what she needs to restore and keep, and peace for that one small step that you're asking her to do next, because I know that there will be people in her life who will even question it. And so, Lord, I just pray that you give her that peace. I ask that you would help quiet that voice of shame and that inner critic that will rise its head up and try to stop her. And I pray that you strengthen the voice of truth that comes from your lips, Papa. So bring her back to herself and back to you, Papa. Amen. All right. So next week, I'm excited because we're going to be switching gears. Best-selling author, Amazon author, Dr. Heather Birchfield of Not Here to Be Nice. It's an Ephesians Bible study. You're not going to want to miss this because it takes you from regular surface level Christianity into a deep spiritual maturity. And it's so good. So if you've been feeling in this era that we live in where you have to be nice and keep the peace, she's going to help you learn what it's like to be bold, clear, grounded in who you are in Christ. And so you don't want to miss it. And so if today's message hit you and I want you to share with a friend, Making Life Beautiful Again, go leave a review, but for sure, come into the Facebook group and share with us what your one polishing step is going to be. All right, you guys. And remember, later is now. So if you've been telling yourself, I'm going to hold off till later, that's today.